This episode of the EV Resource Podcast is brought to you by Titan Auto and Tire. Titan has some of the very few independent auto repair shops in Central Virginia that are qualified to work on EVs and hybrids. And from hybrids to Hummers, they fix everything. For more information and to schedule an appointment for your vehicle, go to TitanAutoTire.com. Coming up this week,
The hardest part about for me for driving the car, though, was getting used to the navigation aspect of, like, not the navigation, like
the user interface.
Right. I'm got an iPad now. I'm trying to, like, how do I adjust my mirrors?
Well, hello, friends, and welcome to episode 178 of the EV Resource Podcast. I'm Zach Hurst, and each week I bring you the latest EV news, information, and interviews with industry experts. And this week, we're doing none of those, which is perfectly fine. I've got a really special conversation here with a good friend of mine, David Sporn. And the reason we're doing this is because David is not an EV guy.
I'm not.
He is very much a diehard gearhead car guy. If it smells like race fuel and burning tires and sounds like it's going to go like a bat out of hell, David's all into it. But recently you had a rather interesting experience, not your first EV experience, but in your life, you've done a lot of road trips. And now you can finally check off the EV road trip. So we're going to get into this, talk a lot about charging, naturally, just overall impressions, things you liked, didn't like, and how the experience went. Clearly, it was enough to make you go, hey, this is something I want to share.
Yeah.
Let's just get into it, because I'm sure you've got a great story.
Yeah.
How did you get access to this other car? I mean,
It is the girlfriend's
Okay.
car. She owns a Model Y, the long range, not the sport.
Yep. Okay.
It's white. Its name is Dr. Jimmy.
Which is awesome.
Right. Like, I didn't know you could name the car.
Yeah.
And, like, she's got, like, a profile name on it. So, like, the whole thing, it's pretty cool. So, yeah, we went Richmond to Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg area. And then we spent, like, a day at, like, Dollywood. And then went from there to Nashville that night. Stayed in Nashville for a hot minute. And then drove from Nashville then to Asheville, North Carolina.
Okay.
Stayed the night in Nashville, did some stuff that night, and then the next morning went from Asheville, then back to Richmond. So
Okay. So this was quite the trip.
yeah.
When you guys were planning to make this trip, what were the factors that ended up in you deciding to take the Tesla versus anything else?
Well, so we had originally talked about flying,
okay.
and we start doing the math on how much time is it going to be in the airport? So it's like, get to the airport 2 hours early plus the flight, and then you got to, maybe change flights, land, you got to then get your luggage, then wait for an Uber or something to get to your hotel.
Sure.
And then it's like, by the time that's like 6-7 hours right there. And I'm like, but it's like 8 hours of driving. And then you don't need to rent a car. It's like, we're doing the math of time versus cost. Then it's like, well, then if we have to drive there, Dollywood's there. We can see this on the way home. Maybe like stop in Raleigh, see some friends and family. And we're like doing the thought process on this. And like also knowing, because it's an EV, I'm not going to be like, hauling it for like 11 hours straight. I'm going to have to stop. I'm going to have to take a break. I'm going to need to eat some snacks, and it's got to charge.
Sure.
There's no way around it. So that's how we ended up doing it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about charging, because naturally, road tripping in an EV versus any other fuel source, whether it be gas powered or diesel or even hydrogen, because there are hydrogen cars.
Ethanol, baby.
Corn. Yeah, sure. So naturally, before you left, I mean, were you planning out every stop of the way, or were you just leaving it up to the car to tell you where you needed to charge and how long you were going to be there and all of that?
It's really funny you mentioned that, because I was thinking we needed to like plan this out. Like, all right, well, we've got to make sure there's a charging station like nearby. No, you get in the car, put in the address of where we want to go, and it's like, you're stopping here, you're stopping here, you're stopping here, you're stopping here. And it's like, you can make it from point A to point B, and like, this is how much charge you'll have. Or you can plug it in at the charging thing. For some reason, they were all at Sheetz. Like, I spent a lot of time at Sheetz. It's not bad. I mean, there's bathrooms clean. They've got snacks. You can walk around. Like, not a bad deal.
Sure.
So I was thinking we need to do that. No, it told us everything. And it's like, and if you want to like really guarantee yourself, like, you can just let it sit there and just keep on charging. Like, if it says you only need to get to like 58%, 22%, whatever it
Yeah.
is, says you need to actually make it to your destination. Well, I don't want to get there running on fumes,
Of course.
So, all right, well, we got time. We're doing okay. The one thing that really screwed us up, though, we didn't calculate for this factor. It had nothing to do with the car. It was on us. The time zone change.
Oh.
That really messed with things.
How did that affect things?
We thought we were doing great on timing, on charging time and everything. And then on the way from Tennessee back to North Carolina, it's like, instantly an hour later. We're just like, but like we didn't plan on that. Like
Right,
that was out
sure.
of our control. So
Yeah. Can't blame the car for that one.
no, that's human error. That's human error. So like the charging like aspect of it wasn't bad, but like I wouldn't have time like that if like I was on like a college tour. Going from
Sure.
school to school to school to school,
Mhm.
where I have 6 to 8 hours of driving time and then have to hope and pray like no one screws up too bad on the highway, truck doesn't break down,
Sure.
don't like
Right.
no issue like that. But when it's like the only thing that's a consideration is like we have a dinner reservation at this time, so like this is the time to beat.
Mhm.
Right. And so you're thinking about that, and then you're weighing like time for charging versus time we need for driving to make the reservation. But like we can charge when we get there.
Mhm.
So, which
Sure.
is also more convenient than like finding a gas station.
Sure.
Like we could have found a gas station, but there's not going to be a gas station on property, like at the place we were staying.
Right,
at,
of course,
right.
yeah.
So, there was
Most
that.
hotels don't have fuel pumps for you, or
You'd think, although, like that's the fun part about Hyperfest, though, is like there's a gas station there at the
Right,
track ready to
sure.
go. So if I'm on the way home, like, cool, I'm just going to fill up literally before I leave. But
right.
that's the exception to that rule.
Sure, sure.
So, so the charging aspect of it wasn't.
Seamless
Yeah.
for the most part. I mean,
Right. The hardest part about for me for driving the car, though, is getting used to the navigation aspect of like not the navigation like
the user interface.
right. I'm got an iPad now. And I'm trying to like, how do I adjust my mirrors?
Right. Yeah. Tesla's, I mean, not every EV is going to be as technologically different
Right.
as a Tesla, where they're almost not cars anymore. They're like
It's an electric
computers
go-kart with an iPad on it that controls it.
Like you just happen to be able to drive, but
Right.
like it's so much more than a car.
Right.
So I'm curious that, I mean, finding charging, no problem. Were you always relying on when it was telling you to, like, did you stop at every charger it was telling you to stop at? Or did you go, we can go a little bit further and like push it?
Well, so there was a little column A, a little column B, just like with what you were saying. So like we did, go to like, all right, well, we have to get juice here. We have to get juice here. But then like other times, like, yeah, the car was telling us, let's say one night we were down to like 36 miles and it was cold outside. And, the hotel did have like one of those little like Bosch trickle charge, things, and like, cool, like we got Princess parking right in front of like the place. So like, I'm not complaining. Good parking spot. It's charging, but it's not fast charging. I don't know
Good for
where they're
overnight.
right. And I didn't know anywhere in the area where we would have been able to find a charge. And then if so, then we're there for 20, 30 minutes instead of plug it in, go upstairs, go
Yeah.
to sleep. But there were other times it was like, all right, well, we can get up to whatever this and then make it to our final destination. But it's like, we got a little time. Let's fill her up.
Right.
You know,
Sure.
let's put some electrons in here.
On average, how long would you say you were stopped at each charging?
Like 15, 20 minutes, maybe 22 minutes. I kind of lost track because you plug it in, maybe go get some food. It's like, can we get somewhere other than Sheets? Maybe like I'm not mad about Sheets. I eat a lot of
Sheetz food
Sheets
is
on the road,
awesome.
right? Have you ever noticed when Sheets is suggesting food to you, it's like, do you want to put tater tots and mozzarella sticks on this? And it's like, what kind of stoner
Yes.
food is Sheets making? Like,
Carbs and sugar. That's all I want.
right, and throw in some tomato sauce and we're good to
We're
go.
good.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, the charging aspect of it wasn't difficult, but if I was doing a tour, and this is like what I brought up, the first time when we talked about EVs, is I don't know if I'd be able to make that type of, drive plus time, and everything until we get something that's got 1,000-mile range. It takes a day and a half to charge up, maybe doable. So
Sure.
we'll see, but it was the most sure-footed car I've ever driven.
Now explain what you mean by that.
Oh man, let me tell you. So like, obviously, you have one of these things. It was grippy in the turns. The body roll aspect, you could fling that thing around, and I'm not really moving. Now, like the seats, there was a whole lot of like that in the seats. Like, so you do get driver fatigue. Like, I'll be honest, the seats in that thing are different than the seats like in a BMW or like, you know, some Recaros in like, like
they don't hug quite as much.
Right. But the car is also not, you know,
well, it's not a sports car. Yeah.
Right. That's what makes me interested about like the, the Roadster. Like, I'm like, can I get one of those as a drift car?
If they eventually make it, and you've got the money for it, then, you know,
there's one in outer space. Go get it. Like,
oh, well, I mean, the original Roadster.
Right.
I don't know if I'd tell anybody to go out and buy one of those and drive it, because it's like a collector's car at this point. Like,
right. So, but yeah, the car, it hugged its corners. It had plenty of power every time. And like, that's what I experienced when I drove my buddy's P100D, P85D.
The Model S Tesla?
Yes. And it had some get up and go. And like, I didn't even get, you know, plaid mode or whatever, you know, hypersonic. You know, I think I only got sport mode. And like, I tried to light up those tires. You know, it's got some oomph to it. But there were different aspects of the driving it, the self-driving mode. Interesting. So like, this is what I didn't like about it. So I would be holding on, but if I'm not like holding on the right way, it kicks me off.
Yep.
And then it just starts slowing down magically. And it's like, I didn't do anything. Or it would want to change lanes when it's not change lane time. And phantom braking was a thing. I didn't like that either. It with the self-driving thing, because like I tried to get it to drive me to a Tesla, like the fast charger.
Okay.
Right. This is the one where I said, this is like, I got to this moment where I was like, I don't like this, because the charger was inside of a parking deck for a hotel. And there's no signage anywhere. And like Tesla, you know, the car will tell you like, you need to go here. Here's the address. And then I go, and then it gives me no other information.
Yep.
It doesn't tell me the charger's inside of a building.
Right.
Or anything like that. And there's no sign outside of this area. Like, charge your EV this way.
Not that's one of my biggest complaints right now is there isn't signage at all for anything to tell you exactly where it is. And that's a great point, because the navigation, and so it sounds like you guys were actually either on advanced or enhanced autopilot or the full self-driving, because if it's allowing you to change lanes and navigate with on autopilot, then it is going to be one of the other packages, not the basic autopilot like us misers are dealing with our cars.
Well, so and this is the other thing though, is like in that like self-driving part, it was all right on the highways at points, but then on other times, you know, it's like what was that movie, iRobot with Will Smith?
Oh yeah.
And he's got like the self-driving car. At one point he says, nah, just clicks it off and he takes control. I felt more comfortable at points when I was in control than when it was in control. The other thing, it doesn't like stop signs and turns in the like self-driving thing. Like taking slow turns, it does not do well. I'm not like, Elon, don't shoot me or anything, but I'm just saying it didn't seem happy. It wasn't fluid.
Right.
You know?
Sure.
But it also at the same time felt like sometimes it had enough power to kick itself out.
Right.
I don't want to be in the middle of like an intersection while this thing's like trying to take a turn on its own and then gets like confused about something and I die. Not that anyone's ever died in a Tesla. Let's make that clear.
I mean,
that's their claim to fame, right?
Shouldn't be, because it has happened, but that's every car. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I generally am not a huge fan of full self-driving. The few times that I've used it, not exactly confidence inspiring, but
it was all right on the highway though.
Oh, highway
was great.
I don't want to road trip in any car, whether it's a Tesla or I mean, honestly, a lot of other manufacturers, even with their gas-powered cars, are adding your lane keeping assist, your adaptive cruise control. The thing that I like, because my wife and I, and you know Missy.
Yeah, of course. Hi, Missy.
She'll be watching this one. You know, we've taken our Model 3 to Miami and back, or New York and back, and 90% of the time I've got autopilot on, and it's basic autopilot, so it doesn't change lanes or anything.
But the adaptive cruise control part, I really did like that. You know, and like the cruise control on that felt, because there's adaptive cruise control in other cars. I've driven. I want to say the new Yukon. I think I drove a 21 or 22. I drove from like here to Canada, I believe, and it has the adaptive cruise control. I really like that. compared to like my cruise control and my like, I drive well, we'll get to this.
Yeah.
Mine does nothing if the cruise control, if it works, like
It will hold your speed into a brick wall. And
right.
It's fine.
Right.
There are some times that I want that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really wish there was basic cruise control.
Mm-hmm.
Just hold my speed.
Right. So that was the other
Because
thing.
then the phantom braking, I don't want to even think about that being a possibility.
So there was one point we were driving, and it's like 2-lane road, and we were in the country, and this piece of farm equipment looking tractor-y thing is like crossing the road. I know I'm clear. I'm
Yes.
moving.
Uh-huh.
And it sees this thing and it goes, no, 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 no. But like, I know we're good. I'm holding it. And next thing I know is just like trying to slam on brakes because but it can't see. There's a big hole where we can drive through and the road is clear.
Yeah.
It just sees the big piece of farm equipment.
I would rather the programmers err on the side of safety.
I understand this, but like,
But other than that minor statement, I completely agree with you.
Right.
Because like the obstacle has already cleared your path and it will still slow down. And it's like,
right.
So my right foot is generally like, not on the highway, but like in situations like that, like hovering over the accelerator. Because I'm like, I'll accelerate when it wants to brake and kind of just
to kind of trick it. And then here's the other thing I learned with the cruise control. So like, let's say I'm like doing 60 in a 60, and then it's going to drop down to a 55 real quick.
Oh, you can adjust that.
So and so instead of like just and then it just stops, I bring it just slightly down to like 56, and then when it tries to do that, then I scroll back up. To back up to 60, and then like it's as if it doesn't do anything. But if you go from a 70 into like a 35,
oh jeez,
in no seconds flat, it's slamming on those brakes with like it's not going to go like if you like in a like regular cruise control, you can press the coast button and just let it eventually get down to this speed.
Yeah.
And Tesla said, nah, fam. And it's like, we're doing 70 until it's no longer time to do 70. Now we're doing 35.
Right.
But yeah, like the driving it, like it was very sure-footed. It felt good. It typically listened to me when I would tell it to. I didn't have any issues. Like if I needed it to stop, it stopped. If I needed to go around someone, I got plenty enough power to send it. But that was also the other thing. It's like the car rides so smooth and it's got enough oomph. Sometimes you'll look down and be like, oh crap, I'm doing 80. And you didn't plan to do anything. It's so smooth.
You don't have that traditional feedback of noise or even vibration that kind of clues you in on, hey, you're going this fast. I love hearing about the driving impressions and all of that, because naturally it's important to highlight that. I want to kind of pivot and get into the non-driving, the non-vehicle things that you ran into, because Teslas especially, more than most vehicles, are, I guess, outfitted with a lot of video gaming, like apps on
it
there.
had stuff. Right.
I definitely want to get into that, but before we do, I want to take a quick break for a word from one of our sponsors, and then we'll get right back into it. Valentine's Day is right around the corner, and you know what that means. It's time to show your love to somebody special in your life. And what better way to do that than giving the gift of Ghirardelli chocolates? There are so many flavors to choose from. My personal favorite is the dark chocolate raspberry. Dark chocolate outer shell with a luscious raspberry filling. It is so good. If you haven't had Ghirardelli chocolates, you definitely need to try it out. Although I got to warn you, if you do, you might not have any left for whoever you're buying a gift for. So maybe buy two, one for you and one for them. There is a special promotion going on right now, 15% off for Valentine's Day. So I will have a special link in the show notes, but then also you can go to ev-resource.com/deals. Ghirardelli Chocolates is there. And don't wait, go do it right now, because Valentine's Day is going to come sooner than you think. So welcome back. We are here with David Sporn talking about his first longer EV road trip experience in a Model Y. I mean, I'm sure you got a chance to play with all of the little things and explore essentially this like well, as you've said a couple times, like basically an iPad, tablet in the center of the vehicle. Talk about like what did you do while you were sitting there charging? And I'm sure some of the things distracted you, and you're like, oh, we can leave, but yeah, well, I'm having fun.
Yeah, so there was a little bit of that going on, and it was mostly because I haven't spent that much time in a Tesla. It was a lot of exploring.
Mhm.
Um, when I was checking out stuff with the car. So like the beat maker, it's fun to play around with, and honestly, you could lay out some interesting ideas with it. So for someone like a producer that he's got time sitting there, just think about it, be like, boop 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 boop. All right, that might work. So
Right.
like you can do that. I did notice there were some games on there. There was like the Tesla music thing. So there was like Spotify, but then like a Tesla music separate from that, like their own like Mixcloud, Pandora, whatever you want to call it. They got their
Sure.
own music app. I played around with some of the like setting things, like the Rainbow Road thing, or like apparently you can do a light show. I never got it to do a light show,
Right.
but like you can get it to do a light show. I want to know, can you program a light show?
Yes, you can, and I'll have to show you.
Would you take like make a light show to Sandstorm or something?
No, but people have done that. I'll play it for you. You know what? I'll put that in the show notes too, in case
Ooh.
people are curious, because I did download the software to program each individual light for when you want it to illuminate
Mhm.
and for how long. It took me an entire day to learn the software and then write the light show. But
Right.
you'll get a kick out
Yeah,
of it.
I mean, I've done some lighting programming. Before,
it's
so that'd be fun.
this is going to sound funny, but like we have a Model 3.
Mhm.
We've had it for a little bit more than 2 years now. The things that I like the most about it are the things that are not car related.
Right.
And I too am a car guy. Like I want to
Right.
go fast. I want to have fun and all of that. But like the games, like I've got a game on my phone now, Polytopia. I don't know if you played it.
Own game.
I discovered it from the Tesla because that's one of the games that they had, and then I started playing it and I'm like, oh, this is cool. I will play this all the time.
Mhm.
And so, like now I've got it on my phone. Or the funny things, like did you get into emissions mode at all?
Farts, the
Yes.
farts.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, right. That's exactly where I was going. Emissions mode.
It's what they call it.
And like, I'm not gonna lie, I must have sat there for like 10 minutes just hitting different fart buttons. And like, they've got a solid selection of.
And they're all named after like SpaceX or Tesla themed
Right.
like short shorts, which is a nod to back in the day when everybody was shorting Tesla's stock, and
Mhm.
they actually made some shorts that you could order and wear.
Short
Shorts. Yeah.
There's like some finance bro out
Or
there, like, I need
ludicrous,
those.
or I mean, it that's never been my sense of humor until we got the Tesla,
Mhm.
and now it's like I feel like a middle school boy because I'm like, this is. I will go. Well,
Do you ever like
Not
prank
anymore.
the kids with it?
they're
They
used to
know.
it. They know.
They
But
know.
what I love
Do you ever
doing.
prank someone else's kids with it?
So back when we would do food delivery together, my wife and I, we would be in downtown Richmond. When we'd go around the VCU school area, what we would do, we'd pull up to a stoplight, put the car in park. I'd have it fart. Of course, everybody on the side of the road would just turn and look. It was hilarious. Like, just why is that? I don't even know why that's funny. I can't
Well,
make sense of it, but whatever. So you got to
Yeah, I got to play with emissions mode, and then like how you can change the color of the car in the
on the
thing.
screen,
right?
yep.
So like that was also cool. The Rainbow Road thing, like I got a kick out of that.
More cowbell.
They had stuff like, and that's what really surprised me is like the amount of stuff.
Yeah.
Like instead of like I don't know, like my first car would be flipping up and down the
Right.
pop-up headlights, like if I'm bored. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, Elon. I think it was actually when he was on the Joe Rogan podcast. Basically said that they're not really cars; they're things to maximize enjoyment, and that's always stuck with me because I'm like, yeah, like I have been known to be in the driveway playing games on the Tesla,
Right.
and I'm getting a text message like, "What are you doing? Come back in." And I'm like, "It's fun.
Give me my 5 minutes.
It's fun." It's like
So speaking of like kind of like that, it's so when I was driving it, one of the things I kept saying to myself, I'm like, this doesn't drive like a car. The experience I'm in right now is not a car. I can't like get wireless overnight updates to my car, right? It felt like I was driving somewhere between an electric go-kart and a computer.
Mhm.
You know, it has. Yeah, that's the only way I can describe it. Is like it felt like driving an electric go kart.
Yep.
But it had all the bells and whistles and told me what to do and
Yeah.
could do things on its own. And
It's with EVs being that so much of it is computer controlled, it unlocks the ability to do a lot of these other things. Like even with non-Tesla EVs, like the Polestar 2 comes to mind. Well, Polestar and Volvo use Google as their operating system. So you can log in with your Google account and you've got, your Google Podcasts or the App Store, and you can't download any app naturally. Right. But I mean, it's the software integration now is pretty spectacular.
Yeah. At the same time though, like I appreciate how like with right now you got to like pay extra money to have different bells and whistles. And a lot of cars are getting like that. BMW has a whole thing right now. Mercedes-Benz has a thing about that. To a degree, I also still want, and like this might be the old fogey in me, buy a car, it's the car, it's ready to go. Like,
yep.
Because then what happens with this if I want to, 20 years down the road, give it to someone and it's like, oh, well, if you didn't pay the monthly fee, now you just got like an electric brick.
Yeah. So
and that's not just Tesla, but that's all cars.
Oh yeah. I mean, there
right now
features as a subscription.
You pay for the car and then you got to keep paying for the car and then you got to pay for the insurance on the car. And
so like I'm okay with a one-time payment. Like for example, our Tesla, it was the base model. So we didn't have all the bells and whistles and everything. But the way Tesla manufactures vehicles is to keep the parts catalog as simple as possible, to optimize the manufacturing process. Physically, our car has a lot of the same hardware that some of the upper trim levels do. But through software, the heated steering wheel, the heated rear seats, those aren't turned on. $300 one time, and I can have heated steering wheel, heated rear seats forever. And I'm going, that's great. But guess what? 2 years, we haven't done it. Now, if we lived in a colder climate, probably wouldn't even hesitate.
Right now, I will say the heat. I've never experienced the heated steering wheel before this. I don't know how I can get in my van anymore. Let me tell you, like comparative, like I never even thought about heated steering wheel, heated mirrors on the sides. Like, sure, you gotta be able to see heated, windshields,
the seat you're sitting in or whatever. Yeah,
right.
Steering wheel.
Like, I like that one.
Yeah,
but why can't you just? I don't know. It's like thinking about like pay extra money for that thing, or can you pay $300 for a kit to install it on any car? I could put heated seats in the vehicle I'm driving right now, and I'll have heated seats for the rest of my life. So it's not just Tesla; it's like all car companies doing this subscription-based thing. And I think after a while, people are going to find workarounds for most of those things.
Being software, everything can be hacked. So, like with Teslas, there is a Canadian company that has their own software updates for the car, where you can add like. I could pay $1,000, 50 more horsepower. It's good for half a second off the 0 to 60. Heated seats, heated steering wheel included. So I'm doing all the math and I'm going, that's great. Voids the warranty, naturally, if Tesla ever found out. And honestly, I don't know if this is true or not, but it's the first car I've ever quote unquote owned where I don't feel like I actually own it.
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
And yeah, to that point, like I'm worried about modifying the car because I don't want them to go, oh, well, now we're not going to cover the warranty on this. Now, after the warranty is completely done, if we still have the car, which probably won't because I don't like the idea of having a car I cannot physically myself fix.
That's also
and not have the warranty. Well, that's just because we don't know enough about how to fix these.
Right. Well, what do you get into like a Rich Benoit case? Where he's like, we're going to take one and put an LS in it, and we're going to take another one and put the guts of the Tesla into
whatever
he.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
like,
we're, as a world, as EVs become much more commonplace, we're going to have people do more modding and hot rodding and all of that. And that's the world that I want to live in. Because, like, I want to take, like, your little 1992 Geo Metro and throw an electric motor in there and with 300 horsepower and just go
like Tesla swap an EK Civic and just watch it fly.
It would be great. Yeah, I would love that.
Tesla swap a Miata. I don't know if the frame could physically handle the weight of all of that, of like the batteries.
you would have to put the batteries in somewhere else, and that's going to change the driving dynamics quite a bit because like most EVs now, the battery pack is in the center of the car at the very bottom underneath the floor. So the heaviest part of the vehicle is at the lowest
Mhm.
part,
It's the
which
lowest center
to
of
your
gravity.
part
Right.
about handling really well, that's what I mean. The Rivian, and I know we're talking about. I mean, we'll get back to talking about
Right.
your road trip,
Right.
but I mean, like you drove a Rivian R1T, the truck.
I didn't drive it. I got to ride it.
Okay,
One of my
you got to
buddies
ride.
recently got it,
Gotcha.
and I saw him pull a trailer like it was nothing. I saw him also use it to pull a forklift out of the mud.
Yeah.
One of our buddies got it stuck in the mud. I'll tell you about who.
Yeah, I'm
later.
interested to hear about
And
that. Yeah.
we also went on the road, and he launched this thing, and
So Rivians
boy howdy,
handle better than a lot of other trucks because of that. Wait,
right?
it's just EVs. Like I mean, anybody that has been following EV Resource for a while knows that I love being at the track,
Mhm.
and I've got the whole hot lap series of videos, and EVs handle so much better that even the ones that don't have a lot of power, you can still have such a better experience. Where that translates on the road, you can make emergency maneuvers.
Right.
Change lanes real quick to avoid something and not have to worry about flipping or rolling over, all of those things. So
Absolutely. If you know how to drive, it will let you drive.
Sure. Yes.
Right. If even you could be the greatest driver in the world, if you depending on the car you got, it still might not do
There are
the thing you
limits.
need it to do. Right.
Sure.
So it will handle as good as you can drive it.
Yep.
So that I really, really did enjoy that aspect of it.
So from an aspect of technology, I mean, clearly you were thrown into a world immersed with all of this technology
Mhm.
that from a vehicle standpoint is all very, very new to you.
Mhm.
I'm curious, was there one thing that is a standout memory of this entire trip, whether it be related to the technology or even to just the driving experience, that is the one thing that kind of stands out in your mind?
Honestly, like how well it handles and how well you can drive it. I mean, it it was grippy. It was fun. It had power when I needed it. It had plenty of braking whenever I needed it. You know, you could have it warming up from pressing a button and have the steering wheel also, warming up. So from a convenience factor, it was nice. Have it charge overnight, unplug it. You already got a full tank. Hit the road, go.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I don't care if in 3 hours I gotta wait 20 minutes to continue on. I probably need to take a break anyways.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I really liked that aspect of it. I think minus some of the electronic babysitters, in some ways, some of it's an advantage, some of it's an electronic babysitter.
Yep.
Like traction control, awesome until you don't want traction control, and then now you got to figure out, all right, where's it in the iPad to turn it off? So
yeah.
but yeah, just the drivability of it was, but it also, as I said, felt like driving a very big electric go-kart with lots of power. So yeah, I think that was the big takeaways.
You can't say that without a smile on your face.
It's an electric go-kart. I mean,
no, lots of power, like
power. Right.
So, I mean, you've done a lot of road trips.
Mhm.
Typically, at the end of the road trip, from a physical standpoint, a mental standpoint, what is your state of being normally?
Ooh, honestly, it depends. It depends on the road trip. So, a few times I've gone Richmond to Boston, and that's tough because you got to go through Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey, and
Yeah.
everyone's flying, and Connecticut's for terrible drivers. So like stuff like that, like I am exhausted. I am beat up from the drive,
Mhm.
because I'm typically in a truck or a van,
Yeah.
loaded down with equipment. So my weight isn't, the low center of gravity. So, the truck is moving, and then it's like the seats in these things are like a lazy boy, right? It's this big leather monstrosity, and I'm just sliding all around this thing. So I do have a lot of driver fatigue. My back is hurting, I'm tired, I'm mentally exhausted from just staring at the road the entire time. So like things like that autopilot thing is nice. It can, because it takes away some of that mental strain.
Just a little bit. Not all of it, but
not just a little bit to, so I could I'm more cognitive, 4 hours later.
Mhm.
Other drives, I've done where like I've had to go like Richmond to Philly, Philly to Canada, and then like spent a day in Canada and then drove home from Canada. Uh, the Tesla, like as much as it would have taken off of me, I wouldn't have had that much time to
Right.
stop at that many charging places on my way home. I
Mhm.
mean, we could add an extra 3 hours to that drive, and it's already a 14-hour drive.
Sure.
So, that aspect is tough, but
And we'll talk because there's ways to optimize the time spent
right.
on a road trip where I mean, shoot, you know what? People need to know this too. Most EVs,
hmm
if you go like as low on the state of charge as you're comfortable, so typically I'll say 10% because most people don't really want to go lower than that. If you go 10 to 50% unplug, and then if you're stopping more frequently, but for 10 minutes
hmm
versus a half hour.
hmm
Or I know some people that will want to charge all the way back up to 100%.
hmm
Never do that because it takes
That,
way too long.
oh god,
Especially,
so the time for charging.
yeah. So like a great example of this is the Polestar 2 that I had for a month. To get from 90 to 100% would take almost as long as it would take to get from like 20 to 90.
Okay, so you're talking just for charge, go,
If
charge,
you
go,
want to
charge,
go
go.
as quickly as possible,
Okay.
it's counterintuitive. Stop more often, but for
For
less time.
Right. No, but I understand that though. Like that I can
Yeah.
handle that. Right.
So it's one of those because at the lower battery percentages,
Mhm.
you're going to have higher charging speeds.
Right. Now, but isn't that bad for batteries? Because from what I know from like any battery tech, like dealing with like a cell phone or anything, is you want to run it down, charge it up, run it down, charge it up, run it down, charge it up, because then it changes how much juice you can hold for ever.
Sure. So I don't know enough about because battery chemistries even change from vehicle to vehicle and
Mm,
certain things like Tesla might have, you know, there's too much variability to be able to give a solid answer to that.
gotcha.
I have seen some companies say no effect whatsoever. You're perfectly fine. I've seen other companies that are like, yeah. What I would say generally is, at least with the Tesla, you're going to have the majority of the battery degradation in like the first year, maybe
Mhm.
lose 10% of the total capacity. And then after that, it kind of levels out. And then you don't really see a lot of impact from that. But once again, if you're only going on road trips every now and then,
Right. So
not going to affect things all that much even then. And and ultimately, let's say like people are all like, well, what about the cost of replacing the battery? Well, don't have the car outside of the warranty period, and then your cost to replace the battery, should you need to, is zero.
Mm,
Like I've had two EVs. I've replaced the batteries in both. The statistical chance of that happening is so minor, but here I am. Like clearly it happened. I didn't pay for either of them.
mhm.
Both were under warranty.
Now, I do remember inside of the settings, there was a whole thing about like wanting to, you can set how, like, what your max charge
Mhm.
level is.
Yep.
And it was saying, like, for everyday driving, don't go below 80%.
80%
Right.
is typically, or if you are gonna like, if you're gonna charge to 100%, make sure that you're discharging or driving
Mm-hmm.
very soon after it finishes, because you don't want to leave it at 100%
Mm.
for very long. And likewise, on the other end at 0%, you don't want to leave it there for very long either.
Right.
You could take it to zero. In fact, whenever I'm doing, used to do the range tests, I would often take the car as close to zero as possible. Then you plug in and charge. You don't want to leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't live in a world where I could say, no, it doesn't have any effect at all, because that just doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
But the amount of an effect, and if that's even something to worry about,
Mm-hmm.
probably not anything that anybody would need to worry about necessarily.
Gotcha.
But you know, I think we're going to need to see how things play out overall with the technology to get more data on that.
Right. We're still
across the
realistically
board.
in like first real generation of electric vehicles. I mean, there have
Mm,
been others, but I'm talking
I'd say
where
second.
this widespread.
Oh well, yeah.
Right,
When you
where-
get every manufacturer that now has,
Right.
for the most part, every manufacturer
Yes.
has at least like one model,
Right. Do you remember like it? The Prius has been around since the early '90s, but like
not an electric car.
Right. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. But like now, every major auto manufacturer has a hybrid out.
Sure.
So it's comparing data from like that first gen Prius to all of the hybrid data we have now from Honda and Toyota and so on and so forth down the line. Okay, now we got better ideas of
Yeah.
X does Y, which equals Z.
Mhm.
Right. So yeah, and give it 4 years, we're gonna have so much more
Oh,
data. A year.
Things are progressing so quickly. Like, I remember, gosh, it's like 4 years ago that I started EV Resource and like started talking about EVs a lot more. And naturally, being friends, like I'm like, dude, you got to get an EV. And you're like, unless I can go like 5 hours while towing a trailer without having to stop, like there isn't an EV for me. I mean, I don't know if you said it
No,
exactly like
it
that,
was
but
about that, yeah.
and certainly your situation's a very
Right,
very,
yeah, I'm
very specific.
right.
But there hasn't been an EV for you. And even the EV trucks that are out there, yes, you can have an F-150 Lightning or a Rivian or, I mean, shoot, now the Cybertruck is for sale and starting deliveries. Like there are options that can tow really, really well, but they're still not to the point where you can go 4 hours
Right. Like
without
I need to be able to
stopping.
like leave here, get to New York City.
Right.
Leave here, get to Charlotte,
So
North Carolina.
it's like you have to travel that distance in a very constrained amount of time. But 5 years from now,
right. Now, theoretically, hear me out. If I'm pulling a trailer, why can't I make power from regenerative braking off of the trailer for the car?
so
I mean,
you
one day.
can actually Airstream. I know has a trailer, and there's another company that I can't remember the name of off the top of my head. Their trailer has batteries and electric motors on the trailer axles. So not only can it help propel the car, which of course means that you can travel for longer because it's not causing as much drag on the car's battery, energy usage. But then also when slowing down, regenerative braking, and it puts the energy back into the trailer's battery.
Right. Now, what happens if it fills up the trailer battery?
Well, then
it starts sending juice to car
I don't
battery?
know that any is set up that way, but I would imagine.
If it went
I
both
mean,
ways.
it's possible. It's got to be possible. I just, software and the engineering, like that's beyond my capabilities, but possible.
Right.
I would imagine.
Like if your trailer battery was already full, you can make power off regenerative braking off the
wouldn't it be cool?
trailer. Couldn't you
route the power to the
where's it going to be
car's
putting
battery.
excess power to?
Yeah.
Just creating heat.
Well, and regenerative braking, I mean, you're not going to get all the energy back.
No.
It's usually about 30-35% typically of the energy you spent to achieve that speed that you would get in return.
So it's like typical thermal efficiency on a combustion engine.
Expand on that.
Thermal efficiency is like you got air, gas, spark, boom, exhaust gas comes out. Only like 19% of that boom actually goes into making power. The rest of it gets lost into heat.
Yay.
Right. So
yeah. So I mean there's certainly some similarities you could draw there.
Now could you run something like an MGU-H and then create energy off of the heat that you're generating?
We're getting so far into the
I'm just talking about like Ferrari's like curved
I mean
system.
Well, there's lots of things that you could do. I mean, naturally, you still have to work within the laws of physics. Like, you're not going to be creating energy magically. Like, for a road trip, it would be great. Like, if there was a way to capture energy to put into the battery to extend your range, and aside from solar, everything else is going to have a negative effect. You can't put a wind turbine, a fan out
with your arrow,
because then you're losing more energy from the drag, or something that like an alternator on a fan on the axle.
I've seen those.
Oh my god, it's
ridiculous. And I'm like, do people understand how physics works?
No, they don't.
Like, what are you gonna do? Charge your phone a little bit? Like
unicorns are real. Yeah. So before we kind of really finalize things, I want to get the top things that you liked and the top things that you didn't like about overall with your trip. And then we'll get to two final questions that I think are going to be illuminating for people who want to get to know you a little better.
All right.
So, I mean, if you can just 3 things you liked, 3 things you didn't like.
3 that I liked: power, handling, and the way it would do like it's cruise control.
Okay.
Like the fact that I can have my hand on the wheel, just go click, boom, cruise control. And then if I wanted to go into autopilot, click, click. And then if I decide I don't like that, boom.
Yeah.
Still decide I still don't like that, boom, boom. Now it's mine.
Sure.
But to like be able to take control of it with 2 up, or
Yeah.
let it take control 2 down.
Okay.
Really, really like
Ease.
that. Right. Because I'm now focused on the road more. I got one speed up down, the other one music up down. I don't need anything else.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So like I like that. And I'm sure there's more advanced things where I could be, press a button and then like talk to the car and then it does the thing.
Mhm.
Didn't get down to there.
Yeah.
Things I didn't like when it couldn't make up its mind with like the self-driving aspect.
Yeah.
How it didn't like, tight turns. It didn't like cities. Like, I just trying it out. Just like see what it does. Didn't
Sure.
like that. And then yeah, I think that's like there wasn't a whole lot that I didn't like.
Okay.
I mean, maybe it could look sexier. I mean, it's not
Looks
the
or,
sexiest
you
looking
know.
car, but like I don't know, it's a vinyl wrap away from being like, oh snap, like throw in a couple of carbon fiber accents, we'll call it a day,
Right. Right.
So, that wasn't bad. The other thing that I wasn't like totally sure about is the back wider than the front. Is the car really shaped like a trapezoid or is it square? Or a
no, I mean
rectangle?
it's pretty even front to back.
Really?
Like the track width of the front and rear
Mhm.
axles is the same.
Okay,
I know that.
It seemed
Did it feel
felt
wider?
a little bit more like.
I mean, it's not like a Testarossa or anything.
Oh, yeah. That'd be dope though,
Wouldn't it?
Tesla swap a Tesla Rosa,
Dude.
call it a Tesla Rosa.
So, in the UK, they have swapped a bunch of Testarossas. Like, I think I just saw on Instagram, like they had 3 of them at the same time. So they call them Tesla Rosas. And
I want one.
oh yeah,
I
like
want one. Although you lose the sound, but I'm sure you could put a speaker in there and just not the same, but God, that'd be cool.
so. I mean, obviously, for the times that you're taking road trips,
Mhm.
there isn't an EV yet
Yeah,
for that. Outside of those use cases, like, how else do you drive around?
So my daily and like my work truck, it's a 2004 Ford E150. It's got a V8, sucks a ton of gas. So that's like my usual go-to when I'm on the road. Sometimes it'll be like a Dodge Caravan or a Yukon or sometimes like definitely like a pickup truck or a
Mhm.
box truck. I've driven box trucks all up and down the East Coast, filled with equipment.
Yeah.
Anything from the small little like 5x10s or whatever they are to the 24 footers where anything bigger and you got to have a CDL.
Right,
So
yeah.
I've driven those. But like my favorite car I ever owned was my '95 Civic. Like I loved that car, and I know
Sure.
you were a Civic fan, so like
I've had quite the experience with the Civic. Yep.
I remember the Hypermiler.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with your sharp front end.
Efficient.
That thing needs some louvers on the back. Like really set it. So yeah, that's what I drive right now is the Ford van, and then whatever the girlfriend has.
So have you, in terms of how you feel your general impression about electric vehicles as a whole, has that changed after having an experience like this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now that I've like gotten, more used to it and really coming to terms with like with driving the car, it is like nothing I've ever driven before.
Mhm.
Just in general, the way it handles, the regenerative braking. I mean, really, you don't need to slam on the brakes. I barely touch the brakes.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So like you have to drive different. And then the throttle response. I mean, there's no throttle to respond. It's, press button, go. Right.
Oh yeah.
Right. So like that takes a second. Braking it's a bit to get used to. So going from, my van to like another vehicle to like driving someone's like Nissan Versa to then driving a Tesla like in the period of like 4 days. Each car is drastically different.
Yes.
And then I'll go karting or something, to just really throw off the mix.
Why not?
Right. So, it's different and you have to get used to how it handles like differently. But I like it. It's enjoyable to drive for like an everyday situation.
Yeah.
It's not the like it doesn't, get things going, in the same way like when you step on the gas in a McLaren and you hear that like angry
I've
sound.
never stepped on the gas in a McLaren, but I'm willing to give it a shot.
Right. I will volunteer as tribute.
Yeah, well, one of
Yeah,
these
I
days,
think you'd
probably,
look good
but,
in a P1
I
or
mean,
an F1.
it would be hard for.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
you sit there and you get two people.
No, extra weight, forget it. No. So I mean, you talked about what you drive. This Ford van that you've had actually for quite a while now, a few years.
Going on a few years with this one.
Okay.
The other one died during COVID.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so I lost my job and I lost my van in like the same week, and it was tough. And that's when I got my Accord.
Okay. Yep. Now I'm remembering.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious because I like to always ask people two questions at the end of the
Mhm.
podcasts. Now, what do you drive? We've covered that,
Right.
but I also like to ask what drives you.
Oh.
What is your purpose?
Oh.
What are you really excited about? Because like clearly you're not me. It's not EV everything all the time and just have some fun going fast on the track with an EV. We're gonna get you there though, for sure.
Yeah, I'm down.
So I'm gonna shut up and just let you answer the question.
So I DJ for a living. I've been doing that. That's my big passion. I've been doing that for 15 years. Now, whether it be nightclubs, weddings, proms, bar mitzvahs, I always tell people I don't work in the music industry. I work in the happiness business. My job is to make people happy.
Mm.
At the end of the day, if people aren't happy and having a good time, I'm doing something wrong.
Okay.
So I'm in love with that. Music in general, turntablism. I've done woodworking. I got a bunch of plants. I'm big on my plants, actual plants. I just want everyone to know I'm talking about actual plants.
Nobody
not
was
like
thinking that.
plants.
Nobody was thinking that.
Hey, we're going green. No, like I have like pothos and snake plants and
Sure, yeah,
tomatoes and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think what drives me, adventure, new things, new experiences.
Okay.
Going cool places. So
I'm feeling like a 2,000, 3,000 mile road trip in an EV. We'll have to find one, maybe like a Porsche Taycan or something.
ooh, yeah.
And just
Take it
go
coast
out to like
coast.
Vegas and back.
Yeah. Ooh, or from the Red Ball Garage to the Portofino.
But that's been done.
Shh. Has it been done in an EV?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, dude.
Someone did a cannonball run in an EV.
A bunch.
How do you do that? Like,
So I think right now the current record is down close to 40 hours, which considering the technology where we are, and I believe Kyle Connor and a couple other guys in a Porsche Taycan have the current record, but like it's gone back and forth. There's like two groups.
mhm,
It used to be a Model S Tesla.
mhm.
I fully expect if it hasn't been done yet that the Lucid Air is going to be a good one because that has like a 400 plus mile range. I think the top of the line has over 500-mile range, which for Cannonball, obviously you're not using all of that, but when the
Right.
Aptera, well, its biggest battery pack will have 1,000-mile range. I'm going, somebody's got to do this.
Right. So, all right. Now, I've been dreaming about cannonball runs, ever since I found out what a cannonball
Since
run
the
is.
movie in the 80s.
I was too young for that one, but like,
Oh, the Countach. Is
right. I know
gorgeous.
about the Countach with the spoiler on the front and like,
Beautiful.
right. when did people start making their first EV cannonball run attempt?
I'd have to look it up.
Okay.
It
But,
was
like-
with a Model S, so I mean, it was. It's been a few years,
right? But it's still like a newer thing.
Ish.
Like people weren't trying like in the late '90s to.
Not that I know.
Right.
Of. Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, the late '90s, we didn't have an EV that it would even make sense to even bother doing that because like we didn't have public charging infrastructure.
Mhm.
Like when you're doing an EV Cannonball, you're very reliant on the fast charging infrastructure.
Mhm.
With Tesla, obviously the supercharger network, especially even now, it's built out so much that you can pretty much, unless you're going to like Montana, like there's going to be chargers pretty much everywhere you go. Like on the East Coast, you're going to pass more chargers than you need to stop and charge at.
Right.
For non-Teslas, it's a little bit different of an experience because reliability comes a question. I know I mentioned Kyle Connor recently. They had sent a team ahead of them
Mhm.
to test the chargers to make sure that one was working, so that when they finally needed to charge, that they would not have to question it, not have
Right,
reliability
pull in,
issues.
go.
Like, yeah.
Well, it's like in
So-
regular cannonballs where there will be a guy literally waiting at the pump with the thing in hand, like for you to pull up and go.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, or I mean, and getting into any of that, like obviously you've got safety and legality, or rather getting caught concerns.
Right.
With an EV, the nice thing is like you don't want to go 160 miles an hour because that'll affect your range to a point where it's like, okay, I can actually make the trip faster by going a slower speed.
I'm down. I'm down.
All right. You heard it here first. We're probably never going to do it.
Maybe. Shh. Never say never.
All right. Well, anything before we end that you want to just throw out there? You know, if people are interested in kind of looking into your DJing,
Ooh.
do you have like a SoundCloud or a YouTube channel or somewhere where they can kind of see some of the stuff you do? Or
So SoundCloud, I got in trouble on with a bunch of my mixes and tracks for copyright infringement recently.
Yeah.
It's RIA,
The life of a DJ, right?
RIA's fault. So we take that out, and but you can find me on Instagram at Duke DJ, DOOK DJ on Instagram, and then it's got a link tree with all of my everything
All right.
else that you could ever want, all the Monday mashup, and you remember.
all the fun stuff, all the fun
so-
stuff. And if you want to follow along with David's EV life, eventually when he does buy one, you're going to hear about it first.
Right. We'll make
right
the announcement here.
It'll be here.
All right. I'll make you that promise.
All right.
Sir, thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Absolutely. Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed the conversation that David and I had. Certainly a lot different from most of the other podcast episodes that we've done. But when David reached out and said that he had just taken his first EV road trip, it was not something that I could pass up on, because there's going to be a lot of people that have a similar experience. And hopefully, before they have that experience, their first EV road trip, they'll listen to this and get kind of a little bit more of an understanding of what it might be like, at the very least, in a Model Y. So, yeah, that's why I wanted to have David on to talk about this and share his experience with all of you. I do have a big announcement to make, actually. The Electric Vehicle Festival is returning for our 4th year. So that'll be later in October, but you can go to the webpage right now, electricvehiclefest.com. If you want to express your interest, you can reserve or pre-register, if you will. But the big thing right now is we are adding an EV summit. So this is more industry focused. And we've got 3 topics of discussion that are going to primarily take place. We're going to be focused on EV charging infrastructure, naturally, commercial fleet electrification, and grid resiliency and modernization. So I am absolutely looking for people that are in the EV industry that want to get involved either as a speaker or a presenter, or get involved with one of the various discussion, more of a roundtable discussions. It'll be in October. Anybody that's interested in more information, you can just reach out to me, hello@ev-resource.com. Total weekend is 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The summit taking place on Friday and Saturday, and the festival taking place on Saturday and Sunday. So we're expanding, we're going big, and it's going to be way better. Best year yet. I know it. I can already feel it. It's going to be awesome. So super excited about that. Basically, save the date, October 18th, 19th, and 20th. If you are not a member of the industry, then of course, just mark down the 19th and 20th, that Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, plan on being there. It's going to take place again at Dominion Raceway in Spotsylvania County, Virginia, right up the road from Richmond, or just about an hour south of DC. Perfect spot. Lots of space, lots of outdoor space. And then, of course, my favorite part, the 2-mile road course, which we also will shut down in the afternoon, use as drag racing. So lots of fun to be had. lots to learn as well for people who are not familiar with EVs. And it looks like we're going to have some decent manufacturer representation this year for some ride and drive style experiences or some demo rides. So it'll be good. It'll be good. Now, before I end the episode, I want to thank our Patreon supporters, as I always do. At the director tier, the top tier, we have Rajeev, Narayan, and Andy Cooper. At the executive producer tier, I want to thank Christopher Lawrence. And at the producer tier, Charles Hall, Eric Weber, and Tony Stuntz. So thank you so much for those very generous individuals that are helping keep the lights on here at EV Resource. Those dollars do add up, and it makes a big difference in terms of what I'm able to do. If you do have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, feel free to reach out to me. I definitely welcome your feedback to hello@ev-resource.com. That's the email that you can send it to. And thank you so much for listening this week. I hope it was enjoyable for you, and I'll catch you next time.